Exposed. The incredible struggles of 12 Christian nuns. Their struggle was more than life itself. Sister Mary crouched among the fading blossoms of the convent garden, her hands entwined in the earth, a world far removed from where she once imagined herself. Here, among tomato vines and sunflowers, she sought solace, yet a stirring discomfort pulsed beneath her calm exterior. Was trading academia for the modest life of a nun truly enough? Her aspirations hung within reach: lectures, debates, a voice echoing in the halls of scholarship. Instead, she was here, a keeper of faith, yet struggling with an identity cloaked in shadows and the silence of unfulfilled dreams. Outside, in the crisp autumn air, muted voices floated into her contemplation. The townsfolk, gathered in the adjoining hall, spoke of a development that threatened everything she held dear. Summer sun or winter chill, the convent had always stood as a refuge, but now a shopping complex? Her heart lurched as one member, a familiar face, uttered disdainful words about the closed-off lives of nuns who hindered progress. The very thought clawed at her insides, as the bitterness of envy filled the void left by her unacknowledged ambitions. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Surrounded by the familiar, comforting hum of the convent, a sudden swirl of chaos took hold. The looming threat of displacement ignited dormant fires within her. Sister Joan's rallying spirit electrified the air, but what if they were disregarded, their voices unheard amid the roar for commercial gain? Then there was Sister Margaret, the youngest, torn between the siren song of the worldly forays whispered to her, and the bond forged among them in faith. The fracture in their unity loomed like a tempest over a placid sea, threatening to drag them into depths uncharted. Her mind raced, oscillating from determination to doubt, fueled by fears she couldn't shake. What if her sisters couldn't see it? Would her convictions slip through her fingers as sand? Desperation clawed at her heart. Sister Mary's breaths became irregular, mirroring the tension that crackled like static in the assembled silence. She needed to lead, to ignite hope in the presence of despair, but self-doubt wrapped her like a shroud. Standing before her fellow nuns during the critical meeting, a weight pressed upon her chest. They looked at her, anticipation mingling with uncertainty. They needed her strength. Could she wrestle her fears into submission? As every eye fixed upon her, Sister Mary grappled with the odds stacked against them, the weight of their cause heavy in the air. What if they faltered? Would her own silence spell defeat? The question hung palpably around her, shrouded in uncertainty, tightly woven with her deep yearning for purpose. Would she rise to the challenge, revealing the depths of her ambition, or would she remain a shadow, trailing further into the abyss? With the future of their convent precariously balanced on her words, Sister Mary confronted the choice. The intensity of the moment coiled within her, a stillness before the impending storm, leaving a profound question that echoed endlessly in her mind. What would it take to reclaim not only their home, but a piece of her own lost soul? Sister Mary's breath caught in her throat as she rose from her kneeling position. The silence enveloped the gathering, a charged anticipation that both inspired and paralyzed her. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the soft rustling of the leaves. Outside, the world churned with change, yet here, in this sacred space, a decision hung precariously in the balance. "Dear sisters," she began, her voice breaking the stillness, "I realize that we find ourselves at a crossroads, one that challenges not just our home, but our very essence as women devoted to our faith." Each word, though simple, felt like an offering, a tentative exploration into the depths of her own resolve. She glanced around, encountering the varying shades of doubt and hope reflected in her sister's eyes. The ghosts of her past, the lectures, the resonating discussions about theology surfaced. What if this was her chance to engage once more? The rhythms of academia pulsed within her. Unable to suppress her conviction, she pressed on. This development is an affront to our way of life, yes, but it also exposes our potential to stand firm and voice our beliefs. From the front row, Sister Joan leaned forward, her expression fierce. But how, Mary? These people out there don't value what we've built. They see us as relics. Even if we protest, what power do we hold? Sister Mary felt a sharp pang at Joan's words. The sharpness of truth. Would they be dismissed? The bitterness of reality hung heavily around them. Yet another flicker of determination ignited. We hold the power of our unity, she asserted, gathering momentum. Each of us is a testament to a different story, a story that can't be silenced by the noise of commerce. With each statement, she began to wrestle with her self-doubt. Perhaps she was not just a caretaker of faith. Perhaps she could also be an advocate, a voice born of her own desires and dreams. The challenge was as daunting as it was exhilarating. Sister Margaret, fidgeting beside Sister Joan, raised her hand tentatively. But what if we're wrong? What if the world does need to change, and we are just clinging to something outdated? Mary's heart raced at the confrontation brewing. No, Margaret, she interjected, her voice steady. Doubt is inevitable, but so is progress. It is precisely our faith that allows us to challenge notions imposed upon us. We are not outdated just because we choose a different path. She felt the ripple across the room. Newfound energy sparked the vehemence of her words. A different kind of fear mingled with hope as she saw her sister shifting thoughts, as if a chorus had begun re-singing the hymns of their past, eyes glinting with possibility. Let us educate those outside our walls, Sister Mary implored, with an undeniable urgency brewing. Let them understand that we are not against progress, but for a different kind of purpose, one where the soul matters just as much as commerce. The air in the room thickened with palpable resolve. Finally, she glimpsed clarity in her sisters' faces, a tangible commitment forming like an indelible ink on a blank parchment. Yet, as the discussion buzzed to life, Sister Mary felt the doubts return. Each sister had their own struggle in the chaos swirling in the outside world. Would they rally together, or would their differences fracture them? The cracks in the foundation, she thought, she had healed began to appear again. Locked in her thoughts, the sound of her heartbeat drummed louder than the voices surrounding her, a reminder of the fragile balance between faith and ambition. What alliances would be forged in the heat of their argument? As moments passed, she realized the weight of her leadership echoed deeper than she had anticipated, revealing an uncomfortable truth. Could she truly navigate this storm, or would she falter at the helm? With a fiery spark igniting a newfound sense of purpose within her, Sister Mary steeled herself for leadership, yet the nagging fear lingered. The moment had come to face the very core of her aspirations and fears. What daring, unforeseen paths would her quest for truth carve through the spiritual landscape of her convent? The meeting buzzed with an energy previously absent, a tangible shift that resonated through Sister Mary's body. She listened intently, absorbing every word that echoed off the convent's walls. Women of faith, her sisters, were awakening. Their diverse perspectives filled the air with a palpable tension, electric and alive. But beneath the surface of their discussions lay a distinct challenge, the fear of dissent within their unity. Perhaps we should consider external input? Proposed Sister Alice, her brow furrowed in thought. A community dialogue could help cultivate understanding. The idea lingered, both appealing and intimidating. The notion of exposing their beliefs to the world beyond their door felt like a reckoning, one that could either bridge the gap or deepen the divide. Sister Mary's heart raced. Community dialogue would mean confronting not just their differing opinions but her own. She had always cherished the sanctuary of the convent, a place where spirituality flourished unfettered. Now, inviting external voices threatened that tranquility. Yet, the forbidden thrill of possibility flickered like a candle in the wind. "You're right," she replied, her voice steady, though her mind oscillated between fear and exhilaration. "We can't just safeguard what we have. We must defend it through dialogue and understanding." As she affirmed Sister Alice's suggestion, she caught a glimpse of the strength in her sister's eyes. Encouraged, Sister Joan leaned forward to engage. "But how do we open up to them? Wouldn't that mean risking everything we've built?" A subtle challenge formed in her tone. This wasn't merely about faith anymore. It was about identity. Mary felt a knot twist in her stomach. Could she bear the thought of dismantling their world to accommodate outside influence? Yet, it became clear if they truly believed in their faith as a guide toward purpose, they must dare to engage in conversations outside their walls. "We need to lead with intention," Mary responded, determination lacing her words. This was not merely a personal journey. It was an evolution of their entire community's approach. Yet, a deeper existential question ignited within her, a notion pressing on her heart. How much was she willing to change herself to protect the values she held dear? As discussions continued, Sister Mary found herself burdened with the choices surfacing. The prospect of forming connections with skeptics could reshape their view of faith a gamble. Would they reclaim their narrative or allow outsiders to define it for them? In the midst of growing consensus among her sisters, she dreaded the confrontation of their fears. Yet her own question loomed larger. Could she inspire the courage they needed? That night, as the stars twinkled to life outside her window, Mary nestled into her own unease. Thoughts spiraled through her mind, introspection mingled with ambition, doubts whispered against the backdrop of her aspirations. How could she be both a shepherd and a challenger? In her heart, a flicker of resilience blossomed. Recognition dawned that leadership meant not just guiding, but evolving alongside her sisters. What if every anxious moment contributed to forging an unfamiliar path, a path that defied tradition, but also embraced her spirit? With a renewed sense of purpose, Sister Mary decided that dialogue was not a threat but an opportunity, a bridge for continuous growth. Tomorrow, she would take the first steps, initiating discussions that would bind them closer together. Yet, as she closed her eyes, a new fear coiled in the shadows of her thoughts. Would they truly rally, or would the effort expose rifts beyond repair? The dawn would bring not just a new day, but new challenges, each demanding her unwavering spirit as a leader. The following morning, she resolved to approach Sister Joan first, knowing the tension should be diffused. But internal dialogue shifted as the urge to confront the entirety of their fears roared within her. This battle was not just with herself. It would shape the course of their faith. How could she rally them for the discussions that would follow, and more importantly, how would she achieve her own personal transformation in the process? Sister Mary awoke to a morning painted in layers of shadow and light, a reflection of her internal landscape. The sun seeped through the convent's narrow windows, illuminating the dust motes swirling in the air. She felt both energized and haunted by the day ahead. Every moment was a ticking clock, urging her to act before the uncertainty consumed her. Determined to confront Sister Joan, Mary found herself replaying their last interaction. Joan's skepticism weighed heavily on Mary's mind. Would confronting her doubt spur courage or exacerbate division? The urgency propelled her from her simple cot to the common room, her heart drumming a familiar rhythm of anxiety. Steeling herself, she entered the room and caught sight of Sister Joan perched by the window, an air of contemplation shrouding her. The vastness of the outside world loomed behind her, a landscape filled with possibilities, but also dangers that Mary feared looming just as close. "Joan," Sister Mary called softly, her voice slightly cracking. "Can we talk?" Joan turned, eyes bright yet cautious. "About yesterday?" A subtle challenge shaded her response. Mary sensed an underlying tension, one that matched the swirling uncertainty in her own heart. "Yes," Mary replied, shifting her weight as her courage wavered. "I believe we need to clarify our vision before engaging with the community. But more than that, we must confront our fears." Sister Joan crossed her arms, her expression a mixture of defiance and curiosity. "And what about the risks? Mary, what if this dialogue undermines our foundation? We might attract voices that we can't silence." Mary openly struggled with her response. Joan's words lingered like shadows, intertwining with the very questions that plagued her. How could she assure Joan that this endeavor would uplift their faith instead of tearing it apart? "Aren't we allowing fear to dictate our journey?" she ventured. "We need to be brave enough to embrace discomfort. What if our understanding grows richer from this?" Joan's gaze softened ever so slightly, reflecting a flicker of introspection. Yet the challenge remained clear in her stance. "Growth can be painful, Mary. I don't want to fracture what we have. I fear what those voices might say." "Your fear is valid," Sister Mary said, her voice laced with sincerity. "But we can't hide from the world. If we do, we might find ourselves lost in our beliefs, missing what matters most: connection, understanding. What if this evolution is what God intends for us?" A moment of silence enveloped them, thick with contemplation. Joan shifted in her seat, perhaps wrestling with an internal debate. Mary seized this moment, urging her thoughts to combine resolve with vulnerability. "I've questioned everything in my heart. This isn't easy for me either, but it's through this dialogue that we can discover who we are in faith. I need your strength, but more importantly, I need you to trust me in this." Just as intentions began to intertwine, a knock echoed through the door, pulling them from their moment. The sisters gathered for their morning prayer, the opportunity for a united front resting just beyond the threshold. Mary felt a rush of fear mixed with determination. Now was the time to not only reassure Joan, but to nurture the bonds among all the sisters. As they entered the prayer room together, Sister Mary's mind raced with thoughts of the impending discussions and her nagging self-doubt. What if she couldn't unite the sisters or incite courage? She needed to be the leader they needed, yet uncertainty festered in the depths. The request for volunteers loomed as the sisters embraced elements of dialogue. Each person's reaction would serve as a reflection of their collective fears and aspirations. Deliberations on how to engage the outside world stretched into uncertainty. Old bonds would be tested, and Mary would assume the role of facilitator. Would she rise to the occasion, or would her leadership falter under that pressure? Glancing towards Sister Joan, she wondered if their earlier conversation laid the groundwork for necessary dialogue. The sacred hour pressed on, charged with unspoken questions. As they bowed their heads, Mary's heart raced beyond the stillness of prayer. Was she prepared to guide them through the turbulent waters ahead? The stakes had never been higher, and she could feel their collective trust teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Tomorrow would unveil the truth of their resolve. In those quiet moments of prayer, a defining choice loomed. Would she be their anchor or catalyst? With her pulse thrumming in her ears, Sister Mary's thoughts echoed louder than the prayers around her. The time had come to face not only her fears, but the fears of every sister. The morning sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the prayer room, illuminating the sisters as they settled into their respective places. Sister Mary felt a palpable shift in energy, the air thick with hope and apprehension. Each sister came cloaked in her own fears and convictions, and Mary needed to harness what lay beneath that exterior, turning their individual unease into a collective strength. As they began their prayer, Mary's mind wandered to the impermanence of their current stillness. This tranquil moment wouldn't last long. Following the tradition of sharing intentions, Mary took a deep breath, her heart sequentially echoing each sister's unarticulated thoughts. What if her call to engage brought turmoil rather than resolution? The thought gnawed at her, but what if it brought clarity and connection? Brothers and sisters in faith, I invite you to share your thoughts today about our upcoming dialogue with the broader community, Mary uttered, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of vulnerability. She felt the gaze of each sister, reflecting their uncertainty back at her. Sister Agatha, sitting to her right, seemed particularly pensive. What if they challenge our beliefs? The world outside can be a harsh critic. Her words ignited a low murmur of agreement. Doubt hung in the room, like thick fog. Mary wrestled with the foundations of her conviction. I understand, Agatha. But what if we see this as an opportunity to reaffirm our faith? The dialogue doesn't have to diminish what we hold sacred. Unpacking our beliefs could reinforce them. She could feel her own voice gaining strength, but the flicker of hesitation in her chest refused to dim. Joan nodded subtly, though her arms remained crossed. What if we lose our way in these discussions? We should protect what we've built. Protecting often leads to isolation, Mary responded, surprising even herself with the assertiveness in her words. I believe God calls us towards understanding, not away from it. Don't we owe it to our faith to explore instead of retreat? The discussion morphed into a cacophony of emotions, various sisters intersecting their concerns, generating a buzz of anxiety and intrigue. But amid the rising tide, Mary sensed something else forming, an undercurrent of desire for connectivity, a yearning to evolve. But with each passing comment, Mary's self-doubt resurfaced, amplified by the room's charged atmosphere. Was she truly fit to guide them? She couldn't ignore the sensation that she was treading on precarious ground. Encouraging open dialogue meant bringing forth uncomfortable conversations, shattering long-held assumptions. Who was she to presume they could handle such vulnerability? Moments stretched and contracted as several more sisters voiced their questions and fears. Their tensions resonated with her own internal battles. Each concern reflected her own trepidations. As fears clashed and a chorus of aspirations arose, realization struck her. To embrace their discontent openly could assist in unearthing their unique identities, not only as individuals, but as a collective. It was then she noticed Joan's softened expression, a calculated flicker of respect piercing through her skepticism. Mary felt a wave of warmth. Perhaps she was beginning to break through unwavering walls. Let us not shy from discomfort, sisters, Mary urged, her heart racing anew. Each of us has something worth sharing, something that could unite us even more profoundly. In the following moments, guided by Mary's insistence, the atmosphere flickered with unpolished truths. They shared thoughts of faith shaped by personal experiences, some uplifting, others harrowing. Vulnerability grew like a wild plant among the concrete of their previous hesitations. The shifting energies began to intertwine, creating a tapestry of shared fears and hopes. As their dialogue evolved, Mary grasped something fundamental. This was not merely about uncharted discussions, but a widening journey to understand their spiritual embodiment. As her resolve lengthened, she realized she wasn't just facilitating, she was living this transformation alongside them, collectively forging a path through the maze of uncertainty. As the sisters finally fell into a hushed silence, Mary felt a surge of empowerment. She was no longer paralyzed by doubt. She was awakening, learning about the strength that lay within each of them. And yet, she sensed a new daunting question rising. Could she continue to wield this newfound power prudently, guiding her sisters without losing herself in the process? Emboldened yet wary, Sister Mary leaned into the moment as uncertainty shifted beneath her. Tomorrow promised to be a pivotal day. The true tests of her leadership loomed just ahead, their complexity as profound as her fears. Would her growing confidence hold as the real challenge unfolded? The next morning arrived accompanied by unease, a sensation that intertwined with the sunshine spilling through the stained glass windows. Mary stood in front of the mirror in her small room, preparing both physically and mentally. She adjusted her habit, straightening it with a careful touch that belied the whirlwind within. Her reflection gazed back at her, a visage layered with uncertainty, still tinged with the glow of last night's revelations. Today would begin the first of many dialogues with the wider community, an arena that filled her with exhilaration, yet also a gnawing fear. Would she still feel empowered, or slip back into tentativeness as challenges rose before her? The potential for conflict loomed, each ponderous thought amplifying her internal debate. Testing her resolve had quickly transformed into a battle of wills, not just against her sister's fears, but against her own. As the sisters gathered in the common room, conversations ebbed and flowed. Mary observed their interactions, the energy shifting as tension surfaced again. Joan remained silently watchful. Her crossed arms wavered between defense and curiosity. This moment, she knew, was about more than just discussing their roles. It would either carve pathways for understanding or deepen the chasms of doubt. "Remember, today is an opportunity," Mary began, lifting her hand slightly as she drew the group's attention. Her voice, having gained strength in the fervor of their last discussion, now sought to quell mounting anxieties. Yet doubt echoed within. Would they trust her guidance in this collective exploration? "We are not just here to speak, we're here to listen to one another's truths." The sisters shifted, whispering their uncertainty. "What if those outside disagree with our beliefs?" Sister Agatha echoed her earlier concern. "We can't control what they say or think." "Nor should we be solely defined by it," Mary replied, the air thick with anticipation. "We can guide our beliefs rather than surrender to critiques. Let's expose ourselves to others' perspectives. It's how we strengthen our foundation." Each word she spoke increased the volume of her heart, an act of faith not just for them, but for herself. Through the frail veil of resilience, Mary recognized a deeper layer of her struggle was emerging. It was no longer merely about facilitating understanding within or among her sisters. This was about her alluring fear of expositions, of becoming vulnerable. With each confrontation of resistance, she could sense her fear loosening its grip, revealing the burning desire to evolve. As the dialogue began, voices rose and fell like waves against the shore. Some sisters shared deep-rooted beliefs, others hesitations rooted in the past. When interjections arose, Mary quickly intervened, redirecting tension into curiosity. "Can you walk us through your thoughts? What lies behind that hesitation?" Each question sought to uncover hidden layers her own probing mind mirrored by those of her sisters. The room began to crack open like an egg, warmth penetrating its cold shell. Yet Mary's victory was fleeting as Joan's voice sliced through her giddiness, sharp with challenge. "But what if we reach an impasse? What if some of us cling to different interpretations?" The atmosphere shifted painfully. Vulnerability had begun to twist, revealing complexity. If she faltered now, the bond they had forged would dissolve into nothingness. Mary steeled herself, invoking her newfound confidence. Maybe this very strange discomfort can illuminate new paths to understanding. Would it be so terrible to celebrate divergence? It may actually show our shared foundation, she voiced, desperate to rally the fraught energy in the room. As the sisters grappled with this new approach, Mary felt the tremors of her own fears echoing through their discussion. Was she truly ready to lead them through their uncertainties without losing herself in their conflicts? The stakes grew as she confronted irrevocable truths. What lay beneath their convictions was uncharted territory, forcing her own transformation to the forefront. As the discussion wove through personal stories, fears, and visions, Mary realized she was not just igniting others' journeys, but unraveling her own. Each revelation, strong and tender, built upon the other, shifting her perception of leadership. It was not a singular power she wielded, it could be a shared evolution. Still, with every step toward connection, uncertainty tightened its grip around her. The dialogue was unsteady, filled with intensity, but she sensed no stopping was an option. Pressing forward could consolidate their footing or lead them into strife. "Prepare yourselves, sisters," Mary concluded, her heart pounding with the rawness of this moment. "The horizon is unpredictable, but our journey together can uncover new realms of faith." As she spoke, She wrestled internally, no longer just guiding them, but grappling with her own truths. Would she emerge from this trial transformed, steadfast in her power? The question, heavy yet invigorating, lingered as they prepared to face the outside world, a world that, until now, she had dreaded. The time had come to embrace the tumult of their interconnected journeys, for better or worse. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor as Mary and her sisters ventured toward the chapel, a traditional meeting place now imbued with a charged atmosphere. The sisters' murmurs mingled with the scent of incense, each breath steeped in expectation yet thick with apprehension. Mary sensed the intensity of shared vulnerability among them. Was this gathering a step forward, or merely a precursor to deeper divisions? Settling into the intimate semicircle of pews, Mary positioned herself among the sisters, maintaining eye contact with each of them as they fell silent. She felt the urgency swelling, a pull to validate the trepidation that hung heavy in the air. "Today, let us confront what we fear," she said, closing her eyes briefly, centering herself. "Let us talk about our differences honestly, with compassion." She hoped her plea would ignite a spirit of openness, yet dread skittered along her spine as she wondered if her call would resonate or evoke further resistance. Joan, with her arms crossed defiantly, met Mary's gaze. "What if we're forced to confront our contradictions?" Her tone sharp with challenge. "Who has to say which truth holds more weight?" The question struck Mary like a bolt, ebbing her resolve for a fleeting moment. Her mind raced, grappling with a lingering self-doubt. The weight of leadership pressed heavily on her. Was she equipped to navigate the tumultuous waters of belief, assuming responsibility for guiding them through divisive discourse? "We can learn through our contradictions," Mary ventured, voice steadied by conviction. "Just because we see things differently doesn't make our beliefs any less valid. It is in understanding where our differences intersect that we evolve." The words emerged more as an affirmation for herself than a directive for her sisters, designed to pull her own fears back into check. As the silence ensued, Sister Clara spoke up, her voice trembling. "I've always felt that questioning my faith was a sin. What if my doubts only lead to more?" Mary's heart cracked open. How often had she wrestled with that very same question in the solitude of her thoughts, afraid that inquiry would weaken her convictions. Isn't exploring our doubts the very foundation of a meaningful faith? Mary offered confidently, even as echoes of her own uncertainties resonated within. This journey isn't about forsaking your convictions, it's embracing the journey of faith itself. Remember, conviction isn't static. It bends, it shifts. Encouraged by Mary's words, the atmosphere began to shift, tension decomposing into a spark of curiosity. The weight of vulnerability, while still present, felt less isolating. Sister Agatha spoke next, voice stronger from newfound courage. "Perhaps our faith grows through the questions we ask. After all these years, I've been stirred to wonder." Mary felt a swell of pride. Maybe this was the change she wanted to see. Strengthening her resolve, she focused on the present moment, sensing a crack forming in the hard shell of previous insecurities. The discussion flowed to embrace fears, doubts, and illuminating moments of clarity. Familiar faces transformed into canvases of revelation, raw and vivid against their shared constraints. Yet amid the sharing, the undercurrent of tension persisted, the unaddressed doubts bubbling beneath the surface. What happens when someone challenges our collective conscience? Challenged Joan again, defiance creeping back into her tone. People outside may not accept divergent interpretations. Another ripple of uncertainty threaded through the sisters at the prospect of external criticism. The unsettling thought of dissecting their faith in front of an audience ignited the core of Mary's apprehensions. Who was she to determine a pathway through the inevitable confrontation of their differences? The fluctuations within herself weighed heavily. Yet, as voices grew louder, pouring forth vulnerable confessions, she could feel a new fire igniting, a commitment to lean into discomfort rather than shy away from it. "We will harness this discomfort," "Sisters," she said, with renewed conviction, understanding that this was a pivotal moment. "The vulnerability we expose today may build bridges instead of walls." In the turning tide of this moment, Mary discovered a surprising strength within her, a capacity not just to lead but to listen, to build connections amidst chaos. But deep inside lurked the ever-looming dread. What if all this exposure led to devastating rifts? If they embraced the chasm of uncertainty, what truth might emerge unscathed? As her sisters began to share in earnest, the tapestry of faith weaving together, that compelling question gnawed at her thoughts. Would their disparate beliefs form a resilient foundation, or would the frayed edges ultimately unravel the bonds they sought to strengthen? The sincerity of their dialogue became palpable, each voice sharpening her understanding of both her role and the intricate dynamics at play. As the afternoon light faded, illuminating the chapel in hues of gold, Mary felt both exhilaration and trepidation knotted within her. She realized that this journey was just beginning. The plunge into confrontation was inescapable. What lay beyond the veil of their differences? As the embers of discussion swirled around them, Mary steeled herself for the inevitable, knowing there would be no turning back from the revelations to come. The dialogue crescendoed and waned, giving way to moments of contemplative silence. Mary felt the urgency to act, to redefine the contours of their exploration beyond theoretical musings. It was time to bridge their internal revelations with actionable change. The flickering chapel light cast long shadows, echoing the uncertainty still lurking in the room. "Let's not only share," Mary proposed, her voice firm yet inviting. "Let us commit to supporting one another in understanding these contradictions and our doubts. What if we start creating an environment that encourages questioning not just here, but in our daily lives?" She observed in the sisters' expressions a mixture of intrigue and wariness. Change often elicited fear. Sister Joan, still skeptical, leaned forward. "And how do we even begin? What if someone gets lost on this path of questioning? What if their faith falters?" Mary took in Joan's concern. It was genuine and laced with a vulnerability that resonated deeply within her. Joan's skepticism mirrored Mary's own internal battles. "Perhaps it's about offering a hand rather than expecting everyone to find their own way alone," she replied, her tone steady despite the tremors in her heart. "If we lay our fears bare, we can forge stronger bonds and guide each other through." As laughter and shyness mixed, Sister Clara cleared her throat. "I think we need to confront our attachment to certainty. What if we each share an aspect of faith that we struggle with?" The suggestion felt electric, binding the moment together. Mary could feel the energy shift, the sisters leaning into vulnerability, embracing the raw tension of their individual truths. "I'll go first," Mary offered, keenly aware that the first step into the unknown would pave paths for others. "I often grapple with the notion of acceptance. How do I accept that my faith might diverge from what I was taught? That there might be more than one interpretation?" A palpable wave of compassion rippled through the group. Each sister nodded, some visibly breathing easier knowing they were not alone. The resolve to voice their struggles was growing, building a collective momentum. One by one, the sisters began to share. Sister Agatha spoke of her struggles with doubt, invoking moments where her convictions had been shaken by life experiences. Sister Clara chimed in, revealing her fear that questioning her faith made her a lesser believer. The weight of the room pressed down a palpable acknowledgement that these were not just personal battles, but shared experiences. Mary sat, absorbing each confession. She resonated with their fears. This was now about more than individual paths. It was about finding strength together. In a quiet moment, she realized that her heart had shifted, allowing a kernel of confidence to swell within. Yet, edged against this burgeoning commitment, was the specter of confrontation that they had yet to face. Mary sensed it looming. What would happen when the outside world, with its urgent insistence on definitive right and wrong, pressed against the fluidity they were beginning to embrace? As the afternoon light dimmed further, and the discussions meandered into evening, Her thoughts darted to forestalling future conflicts. How do we prepare ourselves for the inevitable challenges? Mary questioned aloud, her own uncertainty creeping in. How can we fortify our newfound understanding when others may not accept our diversity? The weight of that question hung ominously, casting a shadow over the warmth of their intimate sharing. Answers were elusive, yet Mary knew that in just posing the question, they were already leaning into the discomfort she had rallied them to embrace. They had ignited a spark, but would it sustain a fire should an external storm arise? With hearts intertwined yet individual doubts still simmering, Mary pondered just how resilient their commitments to each other would prove to be. Would their internal discussions create a solid foundation, or would the dissonance from the outside world threaten to unravel the very fabric of what they began to weave together? As Mary observed her sister's contemplative expressions, she resolved to lead by embracing both her doubts and their collective uncertainty. The night stretched on, filled with questions that remained unanswered. Each sister's silence signified their mutual acknowledgment of the looming confrontation ahead, drawing them deeper into the unknown. Could they truly withstand the weight of external scrutiny, or would their beliefs, once set in trembling ink, be torn apart? The thought clenched her stomach, lingering like an unwelcome guest demanding attention. The time had come to face the external realities that could define their paths forward in exploration, that would test not only their individual resilience, but their collective purpose as well. Mary awoke the next morning, her mind racing with the previous night's conversations. The sun filtered through the chapel windows, casting stripes across her face, yet the warmth was overshadowed by the chill of uncertainty still coiling in her stomach. She had felt invigorated by the sisters' vulnerability, but the looming question of the external world pressed heavily upon her. Gathering her resolve, Mary decided to take action. She knew they needed a tangible plan, something to ground their commitment to exploration and support. A meeting was essential, but this time, it had to be different. They were not puppets of past convictions, but individuals in flux. Today, let us focus on our truths, she announced when the sisters reconvened. Her gaze was steady, reflecting a combination of excitement and trepidation. Let us carve out a safe space to share what matters most to us personally, our doubts, our hopes, our plans. I propose we formulate strategies to stand firm against outside pressures. Sister Joan squirmed in her seat, wrestling with apprehension. What if vulnerability leads to more division? What if we expose ourselves and someone stumbles? But what if this is the only way we grow? Mary interjected. The desire to break free from their internal chains motivated her words. She recognized Joan's concerns as valid. This path was not without its risks. We cannot shield ourselves forever. Embracing scrutiny can be liberating. It can equip us to handle the inevitable pushback. Slowly, reluctance softened into curiosity among the group. Mary suggested a brainstorming session where they could voice both their fears and aspirations. The dim light flickering around them seemed less stifling now, more like a beacon guiding them forward. One by one, the sisters began to share. Sister Clara spoke fervently about her fear of isolation in the face of newfound beliefs that didn't align with those of her peers outside the chapel. I want to be honest about my faith, but what if they don't accept me? What if they pull away? Mary felt a surge of empathy as she listened, the familiar pang of doubt echoing in her own heart. What if we turn our doubts into dialogue? She countered. What if we prepare ourselves to communicate our truths without shame? Sister Agatha, her voice a tremor, initiated a different conversation thread. What about our motivations? Are we changing out of a desire for acceptance, or truly seeking a deeper understanding of our faith? The room fell silent, each sister reflecting on that profound question. For Mary, it was a pivotal moment, a chance for self-discovery mixed with raw honesty. She felt her personal motivations sharpen, clarifying her own principles and intentions. Days turned into weeks, and each meeting added layers to their emerging framework. They began to engage with literature promoting diverse perspectives on faith. They explored differing theological interpretations, empowering their discussions with knowledge. Mary's passion swelled with each revelation, feeding her desire to transcend mere theory. She wanted life-changing application. However, the looming specter of outside critique persisted, every strong conviction secretly undermined by the fear of misunderstanding. The harmony they had nurtured became fragile as doubts reemerged, questioning whether their unified front would withstand scrutiny. One afternoon, Mary overheard whispers of discomfort from the sisters. "What if they don't want our presence anymore?" Sister Joan's voice quivered with fear. "What if they see our growth as rebellion?" Mary's heart sank, concern twisting in her stomach once again. However, this was the crux of their journey. Could conviction stand under pressure? As the questions mounted, Mary understood that their true test lay not just in managing the internal strife, but also in articulating their truths to a world that might not welcome them. The deeper understanding they were forging internally had to translate into resilience externally. How could they rally against the very fears they were combating within one another? As they embraced the challenge ahead, Mary felt a fire ignite in her heart, a fierce determination to grow individually while fortifying their connection. No longer mere participants in a sketchy belief system, they stood on the cusp of courageous exploration. The real test awaited. Could their newfound strength bear the scrutiny of an increasingly skeptical world, or would their urge for conformity drown out the truths they had just begun to articulate? The moment was approaching, drawing closer like an unwelcome storm cloud on the horizon. Mary gazed at her sisters, ready to confront the unknown hand in hand. What awaited them in the tempest of their beliefs? Sister Mary stood at the threshold of her new reality. The culmination of months of dialogue, struggle, and identity transformation had led her to this moment. In the soft morning light filtering through the chapel windows, she felt an amalgamation of courage and clarity. They had ventured through their fears, uncertainties, and the nagging question of their worth amidst a world that often overlooked their existence. "We have spoken," Mary stated, her voice steady, resonating with the sisters gathered before her. "Now, it is time to act." Their intent to engage with the community, once a timid ember of hope, had blossomed into a roaring determination. The impending community meeting loomed like a test of faith, yet it was also an opportunity for realization. They would retell their stories, reshape their convictions, and assert their place in a world that often deemed them irrelevant. Reflecting on the journey taken, Mary now stood not as the hesitant nun she had once been, but as a confident advocate for their collective identity. In previous meetings, she had wrestled with doubt, fearful of what lay beyond their walls. But through embracing vulnerability, she had transformed reluctance into a source of strength. Today marked the moment she would unleash the spoken truths that had long been lurking in the shadows of their convent. As they entered the meeting hall, an unexpected swell of admiration enveloped her. The array of community members murmuring amongst themselves contrasted with the stillness of her sisters, who now stood beside her strengthened by affirmation, united in purpose. Each sister's unique and heartfelt story contributed to an undeniable tapestry of shared resilience. They were individuals, yet together they formed a collective voice. Mary began speaking from her heart. "The world sees us as nuns, an idea shrouded in misconceptions. But we are so much more than labels. We are theologians, scholars, and seekers of truth. This gathering is our expression of faith, an invitation to share our journeys, our doubts, and our hopes." She felt the weight of fear dissipate, replaced with an unwavering sense of purpose. They were reclaiming their narrative, rather than allowing it to be dictated by external judgments. As she spoke, she noticed the eyes of her fellow sisters gleaming with newfound authority and belief. In this moment, Mary's words did not just illuminate her journey. They empowered her sisters to share their own stories that had been silenced out of fear. Sister Joan, once apprehensive, now extended her voice to affirm Mary's advocacy, recounting her own doubts and struggles. For too long, we allowed conformity to overshadow our identities. Today, as we stand united, we assert our place in this town not as relics, but as vital voices. Each sister added her testimony, transforming the fear that once loomed over them into a vibrant chorus of hope. As the audience nodded, some with expression and others in quiet contemplation, it became clear they were shifting perception. The air crackled with a palpable sense of connection, one that transcended their individual beliefs. Old paradigms began melting away. Instead of isolation, they pursued communal understanding. The meeting culminated with earnest engagement between the convent and the attendees, fostering a spirit of collaboration and empathy. Enthusiasm replaced previous whispers of doubt, each conversation revealing shared aspirations for the future. When the meeting concluded, Mary felt a rush of satisfaction as she absorbed the reactions of those around her. They respected her, acknowledged the complexity of their existence, and validated her leadership. Months prior, she had felt torn between her commitment to faith and her aspiration in academia. Now, Mary had proven to herself that these worlds could coexist. The narrative they crafted together would resonate far beyond the chapel walls. As the weeks unfolded, the once fragile bonds morphed into a solid foundation, authentically reflected in their actions. They initiated regular community discussions to embrace differences, building a culture of dialogue and understanding that echoed within their convent and beyond. Through this transformative journey, Sister Mary had attained personal fulfillment akin to a lifelong pursuit. She had blended her identity as a seeker of knowledge with her commitment to faith. She emerged from the chrysalis of self-doubt, embracing a remarkable leadership role not only among her sisters, but within the wider community. Standing amidst the vibrant constructs of their newfound alliance, Sister Mary felt a profound embodiment of confidence. She had not only reclaimed her voice, but ignited a wave of empowerment that flowed through her entire sisterhood. They had demonstrated resilience, romance in belief, and the beauty of individuality within diversity. In her heart, she celebrated not just triumph over external challenges, but the deep inner transformation that had inspired both her and her sisters. It was time for the next chapter, marked by shared ambitions to cultivate understanding. With renewed energy, they stepped forward not merely as nuns hidden in the shadows, but as proactive messengers of faith, ready to conquer a world awaiting their challenge. You need to subscribe now to follow the incredible journeys we'll present next. This is the moment to show your support for inspiring stories of personal achievements. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm so others can discover these transformative tales. Don't wait even one more second. Comment your thoughts and theories about this powerful ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to watch this uplifting conclusion.